Good afternoon, everyone. Jason Fulmore here, SC Wrestle. Sorry, I'm a little in the dark, it looks like. Just finished with the knockout down here in Florida. Beautiful behind me. I don't know what the weather's like up there in North Carolina, but down here it is beautiful 80 degrees as we get ready for the new year. I'm joined by Ryan Mitchell. Hey, Ryan, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. And Frank Smithwick. How are you doing, Frank?
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. So I talked about the weather down here. Is it warm up there, or is it kind of pretty cold?
It's cold.
It's cold.
Yeah. It's cold here in Western North Carolina for sure. It's
all right.
A little rainy and temperatures down.
So actually, it's really good. We're going to talk about North Carolina wrestling today. But North Carolina's a big state, especially east to west. So give me an idea of where you guys are actually located. Ryan, we go with you first.
Right now, I'm in Hendersonville, North Carolina, so I'm like 20 minutes south of Asheville, right in the mountains, west region type of guy. Yeah.
All right, so pretty far away from the East Coast.
Yes, yeah, and I'm originally an East Coast guy, so I was an Outer Banks native. Went to high school out there, and then made my way out to the western part of the state.
Okay. How about you, Frank?
I'm in Charlotte, so we're kind of 2 or 3 hours from the mountains, 2 or 3 hours from the ocean. So we got the best of both worlds.
There you go. So you head whichever direction suits you on that day.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about North Carolina wrestling. And North Carolina is one of, and for anybody who doesn't know, I run SC Wrestle, and you guys do an awesome job up in the Carolinas. Ryan, specifically in North Carolina. Frank, you in both North Carolina and South Carolina, and help me kind of stay up to date with what's going on. And you guys are covering it a lot and doing lots of different things. But North Carolina is one of the only states in the Southeast that's postponed their season. It's back. I think Frank, does it start in April and finish in June? Is that the timeline we're looking at?
It's the state tournaments, I think, like June 22nd or something like that. So kids will already have graduated, but they'll be wrestling for a state championship. So
that's got to be kind of weird.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And Ryan, are we kind of on an abbreviated schedule on kind of what is allowed and what is not allowed, or?
Yeah, so it looks like right now it's going to be just duels only. That includes tries and quads, but there's not going to be any tournaments going on, just duels.
Wow. Okay. All right. So that's really strange. Definitely different. Frank, you dip your toe down into South Carolina a little bit, and they started a little late, but they're doing pretty normal stuff, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think I saw one tournament the other day. I'm not sure how that happened because I think they're the same way. No tournaments allowed, but it's similar to North Carolina, just a normal schedule, normal time frame. A winter sport.
Got it. Are the South Carolina teams allowed to go out of state? Do you know off the top of your head?
I mean, I guess they could go down to Georgia and Florida, but they're allowed to go out of state. I don't know that many of them that do.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody does or they will, but that's something that's not even going to really be an option up in North Carolina, right, Brian? I mean, you guys are April to June, so I don't know that there's going to be any states that are still wrestling at that time.
Yeah, I think the only other state that's on the same timeline as us is California, and I don't think California's traveling here, and I don't think we're traveling there. So,
no doubt. So, one of the things I'm always really interested in is, you guys have. I'm sure the North Carolina coaches have been peeking at kind of what's happened in the other states, and is it successful? Is it not successful? Those different things. Ryan, have you talked to any coaches and said, our decision to wait has been a good one, or, man, I wish we were going right now?
Yeah, I've talked to a few of them, and I feel like it's kind of 50-50. Some coaches are a little disappointed and feel like we could have gone right now, just looking at South Carolina and Georgia and Florida. Their seasons are going off, so they feel comfortable and are ready. And then the other half are glad. They're a little apprehensive that the season's still going to even happen, just with the way that numbers have been progressing in North Carolina. So they're glad that the season's pushed back. A few coaches have mentioned even just as a normal thing, getting competition away from the holidays is nice for a change, so that they're enjoying that.
Right. No doubt.
But I think they're that half of the coaches are excited that we might have a chance this season, because if we tried it now, I don't think the Athletic Association will let it go off. So,
how about you, Frank? Have you heard anything?
I talked to one coach for a long time at a preseason tournament, and he kind of he thinks. I mean, his thought was we should have it now, but it's really going to hurt those seniors, that are trying to make a name for themselves to get that one last look by a college.
Yeah,
big detriment to those seniors. Unless you were a hammer your sophomore, junior year, and you poured on this year, it's going to be tough to get noticed by colleges. So he was kind of on the fence in two different directions. He wants to have it a normal season, but he also, was saying how it's really going to hurt those seniors that are have one last shot at getting looked at by a college.
Yeah. So actually, I'm glad you brought it up, and our focus today is actually to talk about the reclass and focus on the the changes that are coming, not for this coming April through June, but for the following year. You guys have something a lot of us down here in the Southeast don't have a whole lot of, and that is D1 college wrestling, which is going to start here in another day or two. And it's got to be weird that they're going to start, and yet the high school season's not going on.
Very, very weird. Excited for that D1 season to kick back off, though. Missed it. So.
Yeah, I think is Campbell in North Carolina the first one up on the slate? Is that correct?
Yeah, Campbell and UNC. I think that's the first D1 duel of the year. So kicking it off in North Carolina for the whole country. So
that's fantastic. Awesome. Well, I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about the college scene and that, but let's get to the reclass. So one of the things that's always really interesting for me when I cover high schools and everything else is I almost always, when it gets reclassed, I go through it and I go, wow, I can't believe this team moved or this school moved to this classification. And what is that going to mean for the landscape of the season and that sort of thing? And I know in Alabama, actually, where I live, they combined like a lot of schools up into the 5A, 6A group, which meant that group was going to be just absolute. That sectional is going to be unbelievable. So let's take it. Let's take it like this. Ryan, why don't you give us a school or two that moved from one class to another class and what kind of that means for that situation?
So for me, when I was looking through the reclassification, the biggest changes I saw was 2A to 3A. So we got a bunch of schools that are growing from the 2A classification to the larger 3A classification. So Central Academy, where they just won state title tournament team tournament titles last year with Aiden Curry and Kyle Montepetro, they're going to be moving up to 3A along with Fred T. Ford, with the 2A East with David Perry. Croatan has pretty much run that regional for, I don't know, maybe 2 decades now, and they'll also be moving up to 3A. So you have probably 3 of the top 5 powerhouse programs in 2A moving up to 3A, where they're not 3A doesn't lose a whole bunch of schools. So 3A, I feel like, is going to become just massively stacked with Croatan, Fred T. Ford, and Cata moving up into it. And that doesn't even include like Ashe County, Pisgah, East Lincoln, First Flight, Dixon, North Lincoln, Ledford, South Rowan, South Point, Currituck. And along with those 3 schools, that's 13 of the top 25 last year or at the state tournament are moving from 2A to 3A.
Woo! Wow! All right.
So that's the money ticket.
All right, Frank, did you notice that as well?
Yeah, I did see the jump from 2A to 3A schools, and I think be interested to see what Ryan thinks. I think the other thing is kind of breaking up is the kind of the rivalries. Some of the rivalries that have developed over the years, even the last realignment period or even long going past that, some of the rivalries are being broken up. But that happens every realignment. School moves out and new school moves in. But I think some of the rivalries were really special, and they're going to be broken up due to the numbers changing. Schools changing classification.
Is there a rivalry that you're thinking of specifically that you're like, I don't know that's going to happen any longer? Or
Well, kind of like out in the east, like Lumberton and Pinecrest. I think they were, that was a pretty good rivalry. Lumberton and Pinecrest are two emerging programs, in our state, and I think they're going to be broken up a little bit. So I think rivalries are going to be broken up during this next realignment.
what do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, I've been super dialed in and interested in the Newton Conover, West Lincoln, Fred T. Ford kind of rivalry that's been going on since Ford moved down in the last realignment. I feel like those three schools out of the West every year, whoever kind of emerges out of that is going to, they're just button heads every year. And the one who emerges is going to be that top contender for the state title.
Right.
And so Newton Conover and West Lincoln are staying in 2A, but losing Ford up to 3A kind of not diminishes that three-headed rivalry, but takes a little luster out of it, I feel like. And then I feel like with Croatan moving up from 2A to 3A, I feel like all the 2A East schools kind of view them as the rival, being that top dog. So it kind of leaves a void, and maybe we'll see some new rivalries in the 2A East kind of emerge. Whether I know North Pitt and Aiden Grifton, those two schools have been really emerging for a while, and maybe they'll start a budding rivalry to see who the new king of the 2A East is. So maybe some new rivalries will come out of the realignment as well.
Yeah. Do you see anything that was popped out to you, Frank, in terms of a budding new rivalry, perhaps, or anything like that?
I haven't had haven't dived into the numbers into the breakdown thoroughly, but I'm sure there will be some. The Charlotte League isn't always the best league in wrestling, and we did have some nice. There was 3 schools just north of us in the Mooresville area that were kind of mixed in our conferences, and now they've moved out. So we'll have some new schools emerge atop the Charlotte League. Some new, because we always have to compete with the Mooresvilles, the Lake Normans. This was, but they've moved out. They're no longer in the Charlotte League. So some Charlotte schools will maybe rise up and prove themselves that they're the best in the Charlotte area.
I'm glad you brought up the leagues because, none of the other states that I kind of work with down here in the Southeast have conferences, and you guys have conferences in North Carolina. And that's where you're talking about some of these rivalries occurring and some of these, different things that are occurring. So there's been some shift in the conferences too, hasn't there?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any conference that went from a powerhouse to maybe not as much of a powerhouse, or any conference that now is a conference and you go, holy cow, that is a tough conference? Because, and I should say this, conferences aren't just classifications, right? They can actually have a combination of 4A and 3A teams and things like that in North Carolina. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, they can. And I think after reading the guidelines and the criteria for this, you're going to see fewer split conferences. They're trying to get away from that. So I think they're trying to keep it purely 1A schools, 2A schools. But I think the one area you're going to want to watch on is that Mooresville Lake Norman Conference. That's going to be, there's always been a tough one. And I can't remember who's moving in, but I don't think Huff, which is a Charlotte area school, stays with Charlotte. So Huff will be the cream of the crop for Charlotte, and then we'll see who's second place. But I think that one to watch is definitely that Mooresville Lake Norman Conference.
How about you, Ryan?
Yeah. So our conferences kind of got weird this year. I feel like the last realignment they tried to move away, like Frank was saying, they tried to move away from the split conferences thing. I think they were thinking honestly, and we know football kind of runs the world sometimes. So I think they were trying to make it more even across the board, like all 2A, all 1A conferences, just to make the playoffs for football a little easier to determine. And they kind of realized, I think, that that's going to be really hard just geographically. So this time we've seen more split conferences because of that geographic discrepancy, especially out east. I feel like that's where just teams have to travel a long ways. So they're trying to put conferences together that have schools that are closer together. And I think really what it boils down to is it qualifies you for the state dual tournament, but it doesn't really have a whole lot of impact on our wrestling season. It's really just kind of a group of schools that compete. You have a conference title, but it doesn't feed into the regional state tournament thing except for your dual state tournament. So,
but it is bragging rights. I mean, right, in that conference, you guys,
mm-hmm.
I mean, they want to win their conference. That's a big deal for some schools, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure, and especially for individual kids too. Kids literally like having that conference title. You know, the kids that don't have those national implications all the time. You know, our sport's not full of kids that are always going to D1 colleges, so that conference title is pretty important to a lot of those kids. And I mean, I'll go back to that West Lincoln, Newton Conover area, just in those conferences in there, that like greater Hickory region. I feel like those conferences always have just multiple kids coming out that are state champs. So those will be the tough ones that I'll be paying attention to.
So one of the things that, and we're not talking about this April to June. We're talking about a year,
mm-hmm.
like not a year from now, but 8 months or whatever the
mm-hmm.
case is. If we look, Avery County has been kind of the 1A standard bearers. They're going to still be in 1A. Is there any teams that move down or into 1A that we know of that might maybe pose a problem for them?
So I didn't see anybody moving down. I feel like 1A kind of stayed pretty stagnant. I feel like 1A and 4A on the ends were kind of untouched a little bit. 4A had a couple move up, but not as many as you would think. But 1A kind of stayed right where they're at. The biggest change in 1A is they're going to attempt to have more of a standard-based east-west region type deal, where they divided it more down the center of the state, and that's going to move Yari Charter from the east to the west. And I think Jamie Belk was the one who pointed this out on Twitter. But the map works for 2A, 3A, 4A the way they split it, but 1A doesn't work for wrestling because you're going to end up only having like 13 teams in the east and 30 plus teams in the west. So I'll be interested to see if that changes between now and August when that realignment starts. But it still looks like Avery is going to be that standard for a while. Robbinsville always has a great program.
They do, right?
Coach Todd Odom does a great job there, and Yari Charter winning a state title a couple years ago, and they're going to be in the mix as well. And if they do stay out in the West, it looks like Rosewood's going to be just dominating the East at that point. So
Frank, we talked a little bit about 1A, and Ryan said 4A was kind of similar in that it was pretty untouched. Is there any teams? I mean, because we've seen what you were talking about, the Lake Normans. That's 4A, right? I'm not wrong, right? Mooresville, those teams up in 4A. Huff is the defending dual champs. Are they defending
and tournament?
And tournament.
Yeah.
So are they? Do we see any of those 3A teams move up to 4A that might have been hammers in 3A that might make it interesting? Do we know?
There was one I was just looking at. Hold on one second.
Sure.
Northern Guilford moves up, and they were. Let me make sure. Yeah, they were dual champs this past year. Northern Guilford moves up to 4A West. So that'll be and I think they've got a good thing coming. They've got a strong youth program, club system, and they're coached by Justin Hardy, who was an All-American at an NCAA finalist for UNC. He's the head coach there, and he's done a phenomenal job. And so I think that'll be throw a wrench into the 4A West with Northern Guilford moving up.
Got you. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah. So just like Frank said, Northern Guilford with Justin Hardy, just bringing that program up. He does a great job there. And the other two that stood out to me were Southeast Guilford. They got real creative with naming schools there in Guilford County.
Come on.
Yeah. So hey, my town, same thing. We got west, north, east. So, but Southeast Guilford too with Jed Cox. They've been right in the mix for titles. And if they were 4A previous realignment, they went 4A down to 3A, then now back up. So they'll be in the mix. And then Piedmont, who interestingly enough, like I think it was 2 realignments ago, they were 2A, so 2A to 3A and now up to 4A. So growing really fast there. And that's Coach Jamie Belk and crew. So I think those 3 schools, like Frank said, are going to throw a wrench into kind of the team title race. And man, with Laney and Blake Norman and Cardinal Gibbons and defending state champs, with Chip Rogers there. So I'm hoping we get a regular state tournament this year, just because I think it's going to be wild. And then heading into the realignment, adding those 3, I think the team title race is going to be even better.
So as we wrap this up, because I tried to keep it down to 12 to 15 minutes, Frank, if as you look at the realignment across all the classifications, if you were to go, man, I can't wait until I watch this classification because of the realignment, what is that one classification that you're most interested in seeing?
I think I'm going to have to go with 3, and I think it's going to be a bloodbath to get to that. And with at least with this year, I know it doesn't affect this year, but I want to circle back to this. This year, you have to get to the semifinals to move on.
Right.
So that's huge, because if you just get a bad draw or you run into a hammer in the second round of 16 or round of 8, that's the other thing the coach I was talking with was saying that some of these kids that are top notch are going to have trouble getting out of the region to go state. But to answer your question, I think 3A is the one I'm going to circle to keep an eye on is the 3A classification.
So just really quick before we pivot to Ryan, and just to clarify to everyone that maybe isn't as familiar with North Carolina, they're doing something similar to Georgia in that this April to June, this coming season, is kind of truncated, and your ability to book your ticket is significantly hampered. That's what you were alluding to, correct, Frank?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's not for the future. That is only for this coming year, right? April to June.
Yes.
Got it. All right. Ryan, one classification. Which one are you most interested in?
Man, it's just like Frank said, it's 3A. With 13 of the top 25 from last year's state tournament 2A moving into 3A, and then 3A retains 8 of the top 10. I feel like that's going to be just hammers everywhere, and it's going to be unpredictable about who comes out on top of the state tournament or state dual tournament. And not only that, add in like the individual factor, just around the same weight because of 2A moving into 3A, you're going to have Marcus Jackson, and you're going to have Kyle Montepetro, Brock Carey, Brandon Mejia, Ryan Montepetro, Charleston and Jackson Baglio, and Jacob Cox. They're all in that same weight area. So we're gonna condense it, and I'm interested to see kind of who lines up at the same weight and runs into each other at the state tournament. Because at that point, with this not starting until August, these guys could all have multiple state titles under their belt, or some of the younger guys one state title. But Montepetro will be more than likely a 3-timer heading for 4, and Jackson could have 2 under his belt, and same thing for Jacob Cox. So we could see some state champs hitting each other to win another title. So the individual side of it excites me as well.
Yeah, no, I think that, and we don't have a whole lot of time to be able to get into the kind of the potential or the possibilities, but I think you're absolutely right. So one last thing to leave us with, Ryan, we'll start with you.
Man, I just appreciate you having me on here and let me put some content on your website, and just super excited for the year to actually get kicked off. April seems like so far away right now, so I'm trying to crank out some content just because I'm excited, and really amped for this new 3A division, and just see who can come out on top next year. So
nice. How about you, Frank? Anything to leave us with?
No, I have fun working with you two guys and kind of helping, wrestling in the area and across the Southeast. Because I'm from Georgia originally, so I like seeing your Georgia coverage. And I think one thing I hope to get to this, this will be the first year where I can go to the South Carolina State Tournament. And so hopefully the cards have aligned and I can get a lot of content for those two tournaments, and get some good stuff for all our social media.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, because I normally can't actually make it up to North Carolina for the duels or for the state tournament. And I don't know if I'll be allowed in because of COVID restrictions and things like that. But now the schedule opens up at least a little bit to give us an opportunity to be able to visit a few other states. So I appreciate you guys being on. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'd love to, I don't know, pull back around in February, maybe March, right around there. And we'll do an actual preview of the April through June season, if you guys are good with that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sounds great, man. Look forward to it.
All right, man. You guys take care.
You too.
Thanks.